Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I'm Dyvonne, and today I'm going to share with you my sister's roast beef dinner. This is my sister's recipe. She makes her roast beef a few different ways, but anytime that she's going to be having a busy day or she's had a busy day, this is her go-to. These are the veggies that we're going to be using for our roast beef. I have 1.5 pounds of Yukon gold potatoes, or you can also use white potatoes, or sometimes they're called new potatoes, or you can also use red potatoes. But you want to use a sturdy potato because your roast is going to be baking in the oven. It's going to be cooking in the oven, and so you want a potato that's going to stand up to that baking time. I go ahead and I cut most of my potatoes in fourths, but depending on the size of the potato, some of them are going to be cut in thirds or either in half. I have 3 medium-sized carrots that I have washed and peeled, and with my carrots, I go ahead and I cut them in about 2 inches size, but no smaller than an inch. Any smaller than that, during that baking time, they will tend to dissolve on you, and so you won't end up with those nice big carrot pieces. So you do want to kind of cut your carrots up kind of chunky. And then the same will go for my celery. I'm using 2 celery ribs. I'm going to keep the pieces kind of chunky because as it continues to cook, they will get small and break down just a bit. I have some fresh thyme. If you don't have any fresh thyme, you can also use a couple of pinches of dry thyme. I have a 1/4 piece off of a yellow onion, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this into thirds. And the yellow onion is not a sweet onion. It's just a regular yellow onion. If you don't have yellow onion, you can use a white onion or either a brown onion. Then with my meat, I'm using a chuck roast, and this is 3 pounds. A little bit, actually it's a little bit more than 3 pounds. Now you're not going to be able to find a roast that's exactly 3 pounds. So if you find one that's a little bit less or a little bit more than 3 pounds like mine is, that's totally fine. So it's just somewhere around 3 pounds is good. So for my roast, I went on and seasoned it with some coarse kosher salt, just a little bit. I did about 1/2 teaspoon. I'm going to do about 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt per each side. And then also I use my napkin because I want my meat to be a little bit dry because we're going to sear it. And so I'll go ahead and I'm using that kosher salt, and I also put some coarse black pepper as well. My coarse black pepper, just a little bit, just about a sheen. A sheen is going to be around about 1/8 teaspoon per each side, no more than 1/4 teaspoon per each side. Just a little bit of seasoning because we can always add additional seasoning a little later through the cooking time if we want to. So in my Dutch oven, I'm going to put a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to let this get nice and hot on a nice medium high heat, more so a high heat, so that way we're going to sear off our chuck roast, get a nice sear on there. And do you hear that sizzle, that sound? It takes about 3 to 5 minutes per side for that nice sear to form. Now if you don't have a Dutch oven, you can still make this recipe. Just go ahead. You're going to use a heavy bottom pot, and you're going to follow the recipe the same way, but when it comes time to putting it in the oven, you would use a 13x9 casserole dish that has high sides, at least about 3.5 to 4 inches. And I'll share more with you about that when we get to that step. In my pan, I added 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. I go ahead, I added all the veggies, the carrots, my onions, and my celery, and I saute these just until they just kind of start to get soft, just a little bit. And sauteing them is going to help to give them a nice flavor as well, especially when they're cooking with the roast. So definitely you want to saute them just for maybe about 3 to 4 minutes or so. Now we're going to use 1 pack of brown gravy. And on the back of the pack, it says 1 cup of water, and that's what my sister does, 1 cup of water. And then this is her secret ingredient, the beefy onion. You want to get the beefy onion Lipton soup mix, and for that it's 1/2 cup. Okay, so total I combined the 2 in my measuring cup, and I put in 1.5 cups of water. So the brown gravy is 1 cup of water. The beefy onion mix is 1/2 cup of water. I combine each packet into my measuring cup. I added the necessary water, which was total of going to be 1.5. I blended those, mixed those together really well, and then I poured that into my pan with my vegetables. And you see what I was doing, where I was lifting up the fond and the brown bits that were in our Dutch oven. I went on and I lifted it up. So even if you're not using the Dutch oven, you still want to do that. You want to lift up all those little bits and all that fond. I let it simmer for about 30 seconds, no longer than a minute, because the longer you let the gravy mixture simmer with the vegetables, it's going to thicken up. You don't want it to get too thick on you. And so just let it simmer for about 30 seconds to a minute. Add your potatoes into your pot. Mix everything around so that way your potatoes get covered with the gravy mix. Then once you do that, then we're going to go ahead. We're going to add our chuck roast into our pan. Now at this point, if you are using a 13x9 casserole dish, once you blend the potatoes in and they're nice and covered, you want to go ahead and pour everything into your 13x9 casserole dish. Any juice, gravy, all your vegetables. You're going to add your sprigs of thyme, of fresh thyme. If you're not using fresh thyme, you're using dry thyme, just use a couple of pinches, and you want to sprinkle your dry thyme all over your roast and all over around the sides where your vegetables are. For our Dutch oven, we're going to put our nice tight fitting lid. For a casserole dish, you're going to put foil nice and tight all around and seal the foil. For our Dutch oven, we're going to bake it for 1.5 to 2 hours at 300 degrees. And for our casserole dish, we're going to bake it at 325 for 1.5 to 2 hours until it's done and nice and tender. So now our roast has been cooking for about an hour. We want to go ahead and check on it. And do you see how our roast has created its own juices and this wonderful gravy has started to form? So what I do is I go ahead and I move the thyme to the side, and then I check on it and I'm pressing on it, I'm looking at it. It's done, but it's not tender. Well, it's just about done, but it's not done yet. And so we're going to nestle it down into that cooking liquid that it started to create. Now, mind you, we did not add any additional liquid, but just from the juices from the roast cooking have made those additional liquids. Well, our roast is done. It cooked for an additional hour. So total, my roast cooked for 2 hours. It is looking good. I'll just sprinkle a little bit of fresh parsley right on top there. I'm going to go ahead, let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to let it sit right there in the juices. I'm going to cut my roast up into nice chunky pieces so that way it can just be scooped up with the potatoes. It is nice and tender as well. Well, here we go. I have gone on and served us up a nice plate for dinner tonight. Also, I use the potatoes, but you can do the whole recipe minus the potatoes, and you can go on and have it mashed potatoes if you like. Another way that you can also have it is if you want to have it with rice, you can have it with some white rice. You can also have it with noodles. Whatever you want to serve with it, you can go ahead and do that. Well, this is our nice juicy piece of roast. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. Wow, this roast comes out so flavorful, nice and tender. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try. This is a hearty meal with basic ingredients, my sister's roast beef recipe. I'll have a list of ingredients in the description box below, as well as those notations if you want to make this in a casserole dish. And if you'd like to make my Crockpot roast beef, I have a link to that blog in the description box below as well. That is it for me today. If you're not subscribed, I invite you to hit that subscribe button. Become one of my awesome subscribers. If you like this video, don't forget to show it some love. Give it a thumbs up and click share. Share this video with a friend or family. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you can come back and visit me again in my kitchen. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.